We are now a quarter into the 21st century. Yes, the year 2000, the Y2K, was 25 years ago. Feel old yet? That year was pretty much one of the best in terms of releases. We had Britney and her iconic Oops, I Did It Again album, and Shakira released her live album MTV Unplugged. In terms of video games, Pokémania was going crazy, with Gold and Silver hitting the shelves in North America and Australia. The Sims made its incredible debut, and Tomb Raider had the best DLC for its worst game, The Lost Artifact for Tomb Raider 3. That is just a small sample of all the iconic things that came out. Hell, I even was released this year. Did I just refer to my birth as a release? Anyways, all this mumbling, and I still haven't talked about what is, in my opinion, the best thing from the year 2000. No need to do a spoiler alert, you read the title, you saw the thumbnail, it's of course Tomb Raider Chronicles. I am dead serious. If you know me over social media, you know that I would defend that game with my life. In fact, the day I'm releasing this video, so November the 21st, is the day Chronicles came out in Europe on PC. Well, it was first released on November the 15th on the Dreamcast and then on the 17th on the PlayStation, but I chose the 21st cause I play this game on PC. I've decided to make this video about why this game is so important to me and why I think it's the most underrated and misunderstood game in the franchise. And also, in my opinion, a hidden gem. This video won't be a full review of the game, though I will have to sum up the story and tell a few things about its conception that can explain why it's sometimes overhated. Tomb Raider Chronicles is the fifth installment in the Tomb Raider franchise. With a yearly release pattern since 1996, the series was starting to go around in circles. The game engine didn't really evolve since the first game, just like the graphics and the gameplay. Fans at that time were getting a bit bored, so were the devs. In fact, the people behind creating Tomb Raider games were fed up with the higher-ups. Because Tomb Raider 1 was a success, it made core design and ethos greedy, so they wanted to release new games every year. But it left a short time for the developers to create new assets and improve. Developers started to hate Tomb Raider, so much so that they tried to kill Lara in The Last Revelation. However, the CEO of core design at the time wasn't okay with that, so they set up a new team to create a new game. Well, in fact, two teams. One working on Tomb Raider Next Generation for the soon-to-be-released PlayStation 2, and one to release a new old-generation game to make the fans wait. So even in conception, Chronicles wasn't made with love nor expectations. Just here to say that Lara Croft wasn't dead, that she will come back later, and to fill the waiting void for the Angel of Darkness. The length of the game might be explained by this. It was the shortest Tomb Raider game released yet, especially compared to the eternity that were Tomb Raider 3 and 4. So much so that to this day, some people still consider Chronicles as a DLC of The Last Revelation, which is a bit exaggerated in my opinion. In fact, I prefer shorter and replayable games. Maybe this is why Chronicles and Legend are amongst my favorite games of all time. But even if the game is short, is the story good at least? With Lara supposedly dead, the game starts at her funerals or remembrance ceremony. Then Winston is seen in a car with a new character, Father Bram Patrick Duncan. Both men are talking about Lara's disappearance and hope that she will be found in Egypt by Werner von Croy. They then reappear in the Croft Manor with another man, Charles Kane. Fun fact, the latter was supposed to be Jean-Yves from The Last Revelation, but as this character was modeled referencing a real archaeologist, Jean-Yves Empereur, who wasn't too keen on not having been warned of the use of his image, they replaced Jean-Yves with Charles Kane in Chronicles in order to avoid a legal dispute. Anywho, they all reunite to tell different adventures of Lara. This is the first and only Tomb Raider game that doesn't have a main story. In fact, the adventures are separated into 4 distinct stories not linked with each other. Before getting into them, let me warn you that there are some inconsistencies in the timelines of the game. If you know nothing about Tomb Raider and timelines, basically we consider three main timelines, one being the classic timeline consisting of games released by Core Designs between 1996 and 2003. But for all the timelines, we consider the year that the game was released, the year the story is happening. For example, Tomb Raider 1 was released in 1996, so the Atlantean adventure occurs this year. Same for Tomb Raider 2 in 1997, etc, etc, until The Angel of Darkness in 2003. But, as I said, Chronicles is more about telling past stories, so adventures that occurred before the last revelation. They released a press kit and a trailer for Chronicles, each one stating different years for the stories. But let's just say that we, as fans, don't really consider them canon because, as I said, both give different dates and they don't really make much sense. Later, the canon dates were given in an Angel of Darkness companion book, so I will use them to narrate the stories. We first have Lara's venture in Rome, in search of the Philosopher's Stone, where she will encounter familiar faces, Larsen and Pierre Dupont. The story is set in 1995, so before Tomb Raider 1, though Pierre supposedly dies in Chronicles, but as I said, the timeline is a bit messy. We start with a cutscene showing Lara having a deal with Larsen and Pierre in an opera. She wants the Mercury Stone, which is the key to a kind of temple in Rome. As expected with our favorite chaotic gay couple, it doesn't go well and Lara has to use her agility to take the stone by force and escape with grace, even getting the roses she deserves. After finishing the chase with Larsen and Pierre, she mysteriously changes into her classic outfit with all of her gear, ready to explore. This urban adventure takes us to the streets of Rome. Just like the last revelation, the craftsman is not there to play the tutorial. Instead, we have the opera backstage playing the role as the skippable tutorial. But who will skip it and leave one golden rose? After mastering most of Lara's moves, we can explore the city where Lara has to find keys to open the door of this quote-unquote temple. To do that, she'll have to fight tough enemies like a big Mars head that shoots laser with its eyes, or a moving statue that gave me this iconic moment. Does Larsen as well, I guess? And let's not forget the three gargoyles that gave me a hard time as a child. After all this, we can finally enter the Colosseum. Well, whatever it is, because it doesn't really look like a Colosseum from the outside, but okay. And fall into a trap much like the Temple of Xi'an in Tomb Raider 2. At the end of many effort, and possibly Pierre's demise, Lara finally acquires the Philosopher's Stone. The second story is set in 1998 in Russia. Lara wants to enter a military base in search of the legendary Spear of Destiny, cause yeah, why not? She somewhat stealthily, and by that I mean by killing everything that moves, infiltrates a Russian submarine under the control of the Mafia. But she wasn't very cautious, just like in Tomb Raider 2, and gets captured. We start the second level without weapons, which is kind of a staple in classic Tomb Raider. There is always a level where Lara doesn't have a weapon, but who needs pistols when you can use a crowbar? Anyway, once we get the weapons back, it's time for a short underwater level to look for the spear. Once we get it, Sergei Mikhailov, the mafioso with white eyes, steals it. But for some reason, the spear didn't affect Lara, but kills him. Whatever, he's dead, but also damaged the submarine, so we have to quickly escape, dodging literal sparkling waters, unless getting electrocuted is your king, but, well, finally, with the sacrifice of the submarine's admiral Igor Yarofev, Lara can go back safe and sound with Charles Kane, leaving the Spear of Destiny deep into the waters. While Winston leaves to fetch some candles, the thunderstorm outside reminds Father Patrick of our third story. When Lara was just 16, so in 1984, she stayed in Ireland at Winston's house. Rumors of a haunted island brought Father Patrick there, and Lara, being the little curious mouse that she is, eavesdropped everything and snuck out to once again infiltrate a boat. Just like the first two levels of The Last Revelation, we play as Teen Lara, who is defenseless, thus having to avoid enemies. And not any kind of enemies, demons and monsters. This whole section is super duper scary. As a child, I was so scared there. With the little potato man, yes, to me they looked like potatoes, the hanged man, Vladimir Kalita, the Grim Reaper that somewhat helps us, and especially the Sea Hag. Look, as a child, my favorite movie was The Little Mermaid, so to me this monstrosity was scary. The moment where we have to steal a golden coin to lure her into the cage is so stressful. But my psychopath ass was happy when the potato man ate her. Yeah, she was a big trauma, so I was happy to see her die and suffer. I was a weird child, okay. Anyway, this section is now my favorite due to the atmosphere, the change in pace, and I love exploring those old abandoned places. While exploring the island, even though Father Patrick told her to stay put, Lara discovers an old grimoire, the bestiary. Lara then tells Father Patrick that he could help them with fighting the demons and things like that, but he says that his faith will do the job. Well, he will be happy later when, after saving Lara and being captured by a demon, she uses the bestiary to paralyze that demon just by saying his name. Verdelet. After the demon is sent back to where he came from, they can leave this haunted island. Back to the present, Winston takes the two others in Lara's trophy room to talk about the last story and my least favorite, VCI. Ugh, I don't know if I even want to talk about it as I hate this section so much, but well. In the year 1997, Lara infiltrates once again a place. This time, a building in New York City owned by Werner von Croy, Lara's mentor in The Last Revelation, who disappeared in Cambodia because of his greed. Then reappeared, we don't know how or why, to be the main antagonist in this game. This story in Chronicles is set between Cambodia and Egypt in The Last Revelation. Von Croy managed to escape and now has the Iris with him in New York with his father's company, VCI Von Croy Industries, and Lara wants to steal this artifact. Once again, there are some plot holes to how Werner was saved. Why is he in a wheelchair and looks older than his father? Yes, in this cutscene, the one standing next to him is his father. Then he looks totally healthy and younger in Tomb Raider 4 and Angel of Darkness. Also, why does Lara have her pistols in the FMVs and the official art but not in the game? Yeah, we see that this section was probably rushed and they just played on the Matrix latex outfit to sell it. Even if stealth-like levels aren't something new in Tomb Raider, this time it really ditched the tomb aspect and the whole section is like a spy movie. Lara is for the first time helped at distance by a new character that would later come back in later games, our tech-savvy man, Zip. This Yankee warns Lara about trials and enemies as he hacked the whole surveillance system of the building. Instead of animals and monsters, here Lara will have to deal with guards, but also men equipped with super deadly weapons and armor, as well as cyborgs. All of that while avoiding X-rays and deadly gases. As she doesn't have her iconic dual pistols, she will have to fight with an HK that has a sniper mode, but limited ammunition. In the second level, where she has to leave her weapon to pass a metal detector, she will have to use chloroform to put her enemies to sleep. Well, her enemy. There is only one. At the end, she succeeds in her robbery of the Iris in spite of all Von Croy's effort to stop her, even an helicopter shooting at her. Jumping off the skyscraper with her hang glider and avoiding bullets, she made her old mentor even more angry. But he isn't too resentful. The game ends with Werner in Egypt finding Lara's backpack, thus confirming she managed to escape and maybe is alive. I really like that for the first time we don't have a main story but instead different distinct adventures, which is more credible for globetrotting in my opinion. Plus, it's a bit touching to see friends talk about their memories about Lara. The stories are short, yes, but I don't think we need a 20+ hour story with hundreds of side quests to have fun. I know I told you I wouldn't talk about the dates from the press kit and trailer, but let me just come back to them quickly to show you how messy and rushed the whole game was, and cause some of them are fucking ridiculous. In both, Rome is set in 1989, where she would have been 21 years old. It's plausible, though it's also the year where she survived a plane crash that made her want to live her life of riches and become an adventurer. In Rome, she seems already seasoned, so it can't really be one of her first adventures. In the press kit, Russia is set in 1995, which this time could be an accurate date, although she mentions she already dealt with Mafia before. I'm pretty sure it's a nod to the Fiammanera in Tomb Raider 2, so the game must have happened after Tomb Raider 2. Or it could be another mafioso group, but I don't think so. The trailer here starts to be ridiculous, cause it implies the story occurred in 1984, where Lara was just 16, the same age she went to Cambodia with Werner. Yeah, it seems a bit too young, especially with how she looks like in the Russia adventure, where it's nothing compared to Ireland, where this time the press kit rejuvenates Lara by making her 14, so making the story happen in 1982, and the trailer is even worse. She's supposed to be 11 years old by stating that the story happened in 1979, so a mere child somewhat survived on this creepy island by herself. Though, I think the creepiest thing is that if the whole team somewhat agreed on these dates while making the game and the cutscenes, like the trailer and the FMVs, especially this one where we see Lara starting to get undressed, it's disgusting. Finally, for New York, the infiltration is set in 1995 in the trailer and 1999 in the press kit. What makes these two dates wrong is the absence of the iris in Tomb Raider 1 and 2, and its presence in Tomb Raider 3 in the Croft Manor, so she could have only gotten it between Tomb Raider 2 and 3, which are set respectively in 1997 and 1998. I know some of you might be thinking, oh, he's wasting time trying to make sense of timeline for an old-ass game. I'm just like this. I like things to have sense, even if it involves breadcrumbs. Okay, I get it. Let's move on. The gameplay is another aspect that fans at the time kinda despised. Not that it was bad, but it didn't show lots of improvements. In fact, as I said before, Chronicles still uses the same game engine as the first Tomb Raider, with some improvements of course, but it still has the same gameplay. Where Tomb Raider 1 was a revolutionary game in 1996, especially for 3D games, the yearly release pattern made the game start to look and play the same way. Although in my opinion Chronicles is the best classic game that we have in terms of gameplay, its tank control is the most polished, and still better than what would come later. Sorry Angel of Darkness, or dare I say, Ass of Tankness. Just like Tomb Raider 3 being a visually and gameplay-wise slight improvement of Tomb Raider 2, Chronicles is the same for Tomb Raider 4. We have the same moves with some added. First, we have the horizontal bars, only present in VCI. It was still a bit shy in its use, unlike what would come later in the LEU trilogy. But it surely looked cool at the time, right? I don't know, I was just 6 months old when the game was released. One thing I know people hated, and still hate today, are the ropes in the last revelation. These bitches are hard to master. They were somewhat replaced with tight ropes where Lara has to carefully walk on and not lose her balance. Well, ropes aren't fully gone in Chronicles, sadly. As if Ireland wasn't scary enough, we have a damn rope. And this one is so stressful because those damn potato imps are throwing rocks at Lara. So we have to first use the rope to get a torch, light it up, then throw it at the monsters because demons are scared of fire. Then we can finally appreciate using the ropes, I guess. But the Irish rope isn't the only one in the game. As if it wasn't flawed enough, VCI also has ropes, but this time you have to make them appear with a grappling gun. Once again, it's a new idea that would be perfected in LEU. And finally, my favorite move ever, the somersault out of tight spaces. Yeah, I'm not joking. As a child and even today, I found this move so cool, and I'm glad that they put it in all the remasters. Chronicles was the first murder game that didn't have a DLC or bonus levels. But we had something better. Well, PC players once again, because we are the best. We had the Tomb Raider level editor. Basically, the devs gave us the game engine with some assets to create our own levels. It came with some moves, some weapons and objects, and a few textures, mainly from Tomb Raider 3 and The Last Revelation. But, just like any game with its modding community, the Tomb Raider level editor community soon came with lots of textures, movements, and even improvement to the whole engine. Like a few years after the level editor was released, a fan made an updated version called Tomb Raider Next Generation Level Editor, so it allowed fans to make new things that they couldn't do in the basic level editor, and more recently a new engine was developed, which is Tomb Editor. I think Tomb Raider is one of the first, if not the first, series where the fans had the opportunity to create levels and even full games sometimes completely by themselves. I even tried a few times to create my own levels, but once again, when I'm not perfect at something right now, I quit. Then I try again 3 to 4 years later. But unlike me, the Tomb Raider community is super talented. We have lots and lots of levels to play. Sometimes they are linked to challenges like the Advent Calendar, the One Room Challenge, Back to Basics, Create a Classic, etc. So many levels for us to play. But first, play Chronicles. It's an order. I could sponsor this game for free. You can get it for cheap on Steam, and sometimes it's even included in a bundle that takes all the games, also for cheap. And I think it's on GOG too, but for PC we'll have to install a few patches here and there, or you can play it in the 4, 5, 6 trilogy remastered. I am so glad one of my favorite game ever got remastered. I think it's a really good opportunity for new players to discover the game, or even Tomb Raider players to rediscover the game. As I said at the beginning of this long video, Chronicles is the most underrated game in a franchise. Well, to gamers in general, it's no surprise, it's a small game that barely made noise, but even for Tomb Raider fans, I guess it's really unloved. As it was released between two very loved games, The Last Revelation and Angel of Darkness, it's almost invisible, and when fans make tier lists, it's nearly always at the bottom. But why do I and other people, of course, love this game so much to the point where I personally call it a masterpiece? I am aware of all the flaws of the game. It's short, the gameplay, the graphics, etc. is a bit dated. Of course, it's the year 2000. But there is something special about this game that I can't really explain. As I said, I really like that the story isn't one main story, but different stories that aren't linked with each other's. And the gameplay is very enjoyable. Even to this day, I think it aged kinda well. I still take pleasure to replay the game. The music is, however, something that makes everyone agree. It was made by Peter Connolly, who also made the music for The Last Revelation and The Angel of Darkness. The somber yet emotional music is still a pleasure to listen to. Apart from the plot holes that I talked about a bit, one other bad thing about the game is that it has bugs. Especially game-breaking bugs in the damn last level. There are two places in the level that if you save at that point, your save would be dead basically. But apart from that, the game is still very playable today. So the game is not perfect, but on the imperfections, what makes it good? Or is it just nostalgia talking for me? I have a very deep connection to the game. I know it might sound strange, but as a child I played that game so much, although I almost always stopped at VCI because I hated it and still hate it today. Look, it still has a part in my heart, but I'm not the biggest fan of this section. To me, Ireland is such a masterpiece. The scary ambience, the gameplay, the story. because I love spooky things. And then you have VCI, which is buggy, which looks rushed. So to me, the pinnacle of the game being VCI is very a missed opportunity, and it's a pity. That's all I can say. VCI is, when taken by itself, it's good, but at the end of a game, it's not good, especially when you have Ireland before. So I like to consider Ireland being the end of the game. I like to end on a good note. So I love this game so much that I have several copies of it. Well, I don't know why I have 3 copies. I know that as a child I thought I lost the CD, so I asked my parents if they could buy me a new one for my birthday or for Christmas. I don't remember, but I don't know why I have 3. So I have this one over here. You can't really see it here. I don't know if you can see it with light, and I have 2 others on computer that I of course don't use because I play on Steam, so I have it also on Steam. And I have it also on the PlayStation 1, though I do not own a PlayStation 1, but I do have a PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3, so I can play on them. Another thing from Chronicles that I own is when my parents bought me this second-hand copy for my birthday or Christmas, I don't remember, it was many years ago, it came with pages from a magazine. So it's a French magazine called PC Jeux, and it was released a few months after Chronicles, so in February 2001. It's a bit stupid, it's just 3 pages because this one is not about Chronicles, and it's not even all the pages from this magazine. I didn't know about it. It just came in the box, so why not? So I have this one. You can't really see, I'm sorry. Let me hide my face. So, well, it's just pages from a magazine that I still have today. I don't read it because I don't have the full thing. I only have 3 pages which are covering the end of Rome, the beginning of Russia, and the end of the game. So that's all of it. Maybe one day I can find the other pages that are missing, but that's stupid. These 2 things there, I don't do anything with them, but I keep them with me because that's Chronicle thing, so yeah. You might say that it sounds stupid, well, because it is, but I am attached to things like this, to objects, but also to memories, because I played this game so many times, and to me it's linked with good memories. It might not be the best, most polished game, but it's certainly a very feel-good game that brings back good memories from my childhood and teenage years. This is why I wanted to make this silly video about why I love Chronicles so much. The game being 25 this year is so wild to me, because it makes me feel a bit older, as it's 6 months younger than me. If you stayed until here, thank you very much. I hope you liked the video, and I would like to hear from you. What is a game that, in your opinion, doesn't get the recognition it deserves? Because I'm pretty sure that we all have a game or several games that aren't acclaimed masterpieces, but hold a big part in our heart. It has been the Red Chronicles, and I'll talk to you in the next video.